Welcome to our true crime series. Today, we'll explore one of the most infamous murders in American history, the Clutter family massacre. The Clutter family. The Clutter family was an ordinary American family living in Holcomb, Kansas. Herbert Clutter, the patriarch, was a successful farmer who owned a 1,000-acre farm in the small town. He was a respected member of the community, known for his kindness and generosity. Herbert's wife, Bonnie, was a homemaker who took care of their two children, Nancy and Kenyon. Nancy was a bright and ambitious 16-year-old, while Kenyon was a 15-year-old boy with a passion for sports. The Clutters were considered a quintessential American family, living the American dream. They were active in their community, attending church regularly and participating in local events. Herbert was also a prominent figure in the local farming community, known for his innovative farming techniques. The family's life was quiet and peaceful, surrounded by the vast plains of Kansas. On the surface, the Clutters seemed to have it all: a loving family, a thriving farm, and a strong community. However, beneath the facade, the family was facing some challenges. Herbert's health was declining due to a series of heart attacks, and Bonnie struggled with depression. Despite these issues, the Clutters remained a close-knit family, supporting each other through thick and thin. Tragically, their ordinary lives were shattered. On November 15, 1959, the Clutters were brutally murdered in their home by two strangers, Perry Smith and Dick Hickok. The senseless crime would go on to shock the nation, leaving an indelible mark on American true crime history. The Clutter family's story serves as a poignant reminder of the fragility of life and the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most idyllic communities. Their tragic fate would inspire author Truman Capote to write his iconic book, In Cold Blood, cementing their place in American cultural history. The murder. On November 15, 1959, Perry Smith and Dick Hickok, two ex-convicts from Kansas, arrived in Holcomb with a sinister plan. They had heard a rumor about Herbert Clutter keeping a large sum of cash in his home safe. The two men, fueled by desperation and greed, decided to invade the Clutter residence and steal the money. Smith and Hickok, both in their late 20s, had met in prison and formed a troubled bond. Smith, a former Army veteran, struggled with emotional instability and a troubled past. Hickok, a charismatic con artist, had a history of manipulating others for personal gain. Together, they made a deadly duo. Under the cover of darkness, Smith and Hickok snuck into the Clutter home, gagging and binding the family members. Herbert, Bonnie, Nancy, and Kenyon were taken by surprise, unable to defend themselves. The killers searched the house, but found only $50 in cash, far less than they had anticipated. Enraged by their discovery, Smith and Hickok brutally murdered the Clutter family. Herbert was shot in the head, while Bonnie, Nancy, and Kenyon were killed with shotgun blasts. The crime scene was gruesome, with blood splattered throughout the house. The killers left behind minimal evidence, but their actions would ultimately lead to their downfall. A cryptic letter from a former cellmate of Perry Smith's would provide the crucial lead that investigators needed to track down the perpetrators. The Clutter family's murder sent shockwaves through Holcomb, a small town where crime was rare. The community was left reeling, struggling to comprehend the senseless brutality of the crime. Little did they know that the investigation would be one of the most extensive in Kansas history, spanning multiple states and involving hundreds of leads. Investigation. The investigation into the Clutter family murder was one of the largest and most extensive in Kansas history, led by Detective Al Dewey. A team of investigators from the Kansas Bureau of Investigation (KBI) worked tirelessly to gather evidence and track down leads. The crime scene was meticulously processed, with detectives collecting fingerprints, footprints, and other physical evidence. Initially, the investigation focused on potential suspects within the community. However, as the days passed, detectives began to explore other avenues. A cryptic letter from a former cellmate of Perry Smith's, a man named Floyd Wells, would prove to be the breakthrough the investigators needed. Wells had served time with Smith in the Kansas State Penitentiary and had heard him discuss plans to rob a wealthy farmer in Holcomb. Wells' information led detectives to Perry Smith and Dick Hickok, two ex-cons with a history of violence. Smith and Hickok had met in prison and had been traveling together since their release. Detectives discovered that the pair had been in the Holcomb area around the time of the murders, and their alibis for the night of the crime were shaky at best. As the investigation continued, detectives gathered more evidence linking Smith and Hickok to the crime. A pair of boots found near the crime scene matched the tread pattern of boots owned by Smith. Additionally, witnesses placed the pair in the area on the night of the murders. On December 30th, 1959, Smith and Hickok were arrested in Las Vegas, Nevada, after a tip from a local motel owner. The pair were found with some of the Clutter's belongings, including a radio and a pair of binoculars. The evidence against them was overwhelming, and both men were charged with the murder of the Clutter family. The swift resolution of the case was a testament to the dedication and perseverance of Detective Dewey and his team. Their work brought closure to the people of Holcomb and ensured that justice would be served for the Clutter family. Capture and trial. The trial of Perry Smith and Dick Hickok was a highly publicized and dramatic event held in Garden City, Kansas. The trial drew national attention, with reporters and spectators packing the courtroom. Prosecutors presented a wealth of evidence, including eyewitness testimony, physical evidence, and damaging statements from the defendants themselves. Smith and Hickok's defense team argued that the pair were not entirely responsible for their actions, citing troubled pasts and psychological instability. However, prosecutors countered that the murders were premeditated and carried out with calculated brutality. On March 29, 1960, the jury delivered its verdict. Smith and Hickok were found guilty of first-degree murder. The judge sentenced both men to death, pending appeal. The verdict brought a sense of closure to the Clutter family's loved ones, but the appeal process would drag on for years. In 1965, after multiple appeals, the Kansas Supreme Court upheld the convictions and sentences. Smith and Hickok's final appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court was denied, paving the way for their execution. On April 14, 1965, Perry Smith and Dick Hickok were hanged at the Kansas State Penitentiary. Their executions marked the end of a long and painful chapter for the people of Holcomb and the Clutter family's loved ones. In the years following the trial, author Truman Capote became fascinated with the case and began researching his iconic book. In Cold Blood, Capote's work would cement the Clutter family's place in American cultural history, ensuring that their story would never be forgotten. The Clutter family murder trial set a precedent for future true crime cases, highlighting the importance of forensic evidence and thorough investigation. The case also raised questions about the nature of evil and the human condition, sparking a national conversation about violence and justice. Today, the Clutter family's legacy lives on through the work of the Kansas Bureau of Investigation and the countless law enforcement officials who continue to draw inspiration from Detective Dewey's tireless pursuit of justice. Aftermath. The aftermath of the Clutter family murder was marked by a profound sense of loss and trauma. The small town of Holcomb, Kansas, was forever changed by the brutal crime. Residents struggled to comprehend the senseless violence that had shattered their peaceful community. Herbert Clutter's brothers, Clarence and Walter, worked tirelessly to preserve their brother's legacy. They established the Herbert Clutter Memorial Foundation, which provided scholarships and support to local students. Truman Capote's book, In Cold Blood, published in 1965, further immortalized the Clutter family story. The best-selling novel brought international attention to the case, sparking widespread discussion and debate. The book's success also sparked controversy, with some critics accusing Capote of sensationalism and exploitation. However, others praised the author's nuanced portrayal of the killers and his thought-provoking exploration of human nature. In the decades following the murder, Holcomb, Kansas, slowly healed. The town continued to grow and thrive, but the memory of the Clutter family remained a poignant reminder of the tragedy. Today, visitors can tour the Clutter family home, now a private museum. The house stands as a testament to the enduring legacy of Herbert, Bonnie, Nancy, and Kenyon Clutter. The Clutter family murder also had a lasting impact on American true crime literature and media, and Cold Blood paved the way for future true crime classics, such as Helter Skelter and The Devil in the White City. The case continues to fascinate audiences, inspiring documentaries, films, and television shows. The Clutter family's story serves as a powerful reminder of the devastating consequences of violence and the importance of seeking justice. As the years pass, the Clutter family's memory remains a beacon of hope and resilience. Their legacy continues to inspire and educate, ensuring that their tragic story will never be forgotten. The Clutter family murder case remains an important chapter in American true crime history, a sobering reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most idyllic communities. Conclusion: the Clutter family murder remains a chilling reminder of the darkness that exists in human nature.